Alright, everybody, welcome to Discussing If I would like to take down the top screen. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop, everybody. It's October 5th. Hey, we've reached the spooky month. Ooh, spooky. I shouldn't do that.
I can feel the ghosts.
Oh, I was going to say it was making my camera like auto-adjust when I put out my fingers into that. Ooh, auto-adjust.
Ooh, you're getting fuzzy.
Briefly before it reevaluates.
Are you able to hear? Am I able to be heard?
You should be able to be heard. According to...
Oh, I'm just really
OBS.
quiet. Okay.
I don't hear the quietness on my end. That's kind of weird. And it doesn't look like you should be any difference on OBS. I'll match mine.
I always noticed I'm quieter on your shows. I don't know what that's about, but I am.
I think it... Well, I mean, like, it's... It might be that I have the full, like, desktop audio, which is what OBS or Discord goes in through, a little lower normally, but I usually like turn it up on other places. I don't know.
That's okay. I can just put my mouth closer to my mic.
Yeah. We got an interesting list of topics today thrown into chat. And for those of you who are can see it there, if you're not listening, just watching us, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. So, I hope you're ready to dive in. I guess we should just get started with our topics for today. We can talk about it a little bit later. So starting out, hey, we got more updates on what we talked about last week, and it turned out maybe it won't be bad, but maybe it will. So what do I mean by Wizards and Commander? Well...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what we talked about last week. I remember the ban things, but...
Remember there was that entire controversy with the ban, and everybody was sending out things like death threats and stuff like that, you know?
So is that what this is based off of? I thought there might have been... Was there something else? Or just that?
It's just based off of that.
Okay.
So what had happened is, the Commander's Rules Committee has been the people in charge of Commander. It's been a fan group. It has been a fan thing. But after this, basically, Wizards took over.
Oh, okay. So they basically... Okay, so they did just completely take it over now.
Yes. And Wizards, unfortunately, has had a mixed track record of how well they manage a lot of formats. Sometimes they're pretty good, sometimes they aren't. But the fact is that Commander had been not in Wizards' hands, and Wizards oftentimes makes decisions which are a little bit more financial, I will say.
Yes, well, always. I wouldn't say sometimes. I'd say
okay.
they're always primarily financial.
Again, it's the thing, like, we have to take it to a grain of salt with a lot of their bans and stuff. They do things to make sure the stuff remains, but they might eliminate cards that are less valuable than others. That kind of thing, too. Like, certainly speaking...
Here's the thing, though. Like, this is the thing I don't get, because, yes, they should make decisions that are based off maintaining the value of their company. And the way they do that is by making good decisions.
What I mean is...
But...
They pertain to the secondary market. So it's a weird decision.
Yes. I know.
Which is... It gets the secondary market shit again. Anyway, it's sort of like... If things had gone fine, the Rules Committee had continued... There are other cards that are really bad in Commander. Things like the One Ring is kind of, a ridiculous card in Commander. I'm not gonna lie. So it was another one that might have been in that kind of area of chopping block. But we're never gonna see that banned now, especially with their One Ring. That thing, they're never going to touch, even how much it, screws over things, because the one they sold, that was worth millions. That they made with that entire awful thing. So sort of like they put them...
Why would they not ban that if it's a problem? See, this is the thing, is like, I get that, but why do they care so much about the secondary market?
Because they use that to push products. What do I mean is, the secondary market usually is expensive because of very good cards, and because of need for people for decks.
Yep.
When they don't reprint things, the value goes high. when they print things in very limited or special areas, it usually doesn't. They can charge a lot, and even if they don't, it'll usually sell out very quickly or sell a lot. And especially if they do it very, like, in a place where it's very difficult, like, oh, we're printing this very expensive card in a commander deck, it's probably not going to impact the overall price.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Or, like, if we sell it in, like, these exclusive $10 packs, this very expensive piece, again, it's probably not going to affect the overall price because they're already selling it something a little bit more expensive to buy it. It might drop the price a little, but they can then get more of them out there, and people will want to buy it up to get them. A good example is the fetch lands. They're a type of land that is really big in Commander, in Modern, in a lot of Legacy formats. They are always incredibly expensive, and they rarely do anything that relates to any kind of reprint with it. It might cost you like $100 for a playset of them, at very least.
So, yeah. And so here's my thought, though, is that a good company will recognize that the health of the game is more important than those kind of cheap grabs. I recognize Wizards is not that company and has not been for at least 2 years.
I'd say at this point in time, I feel like maybe at least a decade we really haven't. I think it's been more subtle.
It's bled over into D&D more. It wasn't that way with D&D side, at least, which is what I pay attention to.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, to a degree, it has been a kind of slope over the last decade. But, like, yes, in the last couple of years, it's really kind of taken a full nosedive.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, yeah, the corporate hand has just become so apparent, and it just makes me not want to ever buy a D&D product again. I'm still going to buy the 3 main books, but we'll see what else I buy.
So again, like, yeah, we're no longer in the rules community. I think we don't even have the advisory boards both gone, so they're just doing it on their own. Yeah. They've announced some things. There's a video that Tolarian College goes over that talks about a little bit. Basically, they said some things. There's like going to be like a tier system or something. We don't know much about.
Why?
I think. I think the rules committee basically wasn't feeling very safe from everything that happened.
Yeah, it honestly, because like reading this quickly, it does feel like it's like it just is like, yeah, because it says the rules committee is giving management of the commander format to the game design team of Wizards of the Coast. So it's basically like, because of the outrage, they're like, okay, we're not going to be involved. We don't want to be involved. They probably lost a bunch of members and were like, yeah, we're going to pass this.
And people worried about their safety. You're getting death threats over this. That is not something that you can take lightly. There was another article on one of the tabletop sites that I can, if people are interested, I can always look it. But I think this said it best. Finance bros and harassment forces MTG's biggest player-owned format into corporate hands. Because that explains it perfectly there. The people that cared about the finance bros and harassment forced the biggest player-owned format in corporate hands.
Yeah.
So the people that cared about the money, and the people that just got pissed off and liked to, or worked with them and harassed, and basically harassers, or assholes.
This is kind of weird to me, though, because, like, first off, the rules committee didn't... There's something going on behind the scenes here. None of this actually makes sense in and of itself. Like, I get... First off, the rules committee didn't go to the advisory board. Then, the rules committee gives themselves over to Wizards of the Coast after death threats. I get that a little bit, but I feel like they were probably already under pressure from Wizards, which is why they made that call. And I'm just kind of like, what's going on here? I feel like something happened. Something behind the scenes happened. It doesn't click together it doesn't click all together in my head.
I think the problem is there might be more behind the story, but we might not hear about it because I don't know if the people will talk about it, depending on the kind of thing it was. You know, there may have been discussions about Wizard running a more active hand, and they use this as an excuse too. And the fact is, it might have just been that the rules committee thought what they were doing was a great idea. And yes, maybe not going to the advisory board was a bad idea. But we don't know how often they went to the advisory board a lot of times. They could have already talked about certain things with the advisory board, and then when we're making this final decision, thought they had already talked enough, We already had a good enough idea, something like that, There's so many, like,
I get that I'm kind of speculating a bit, but I don't know. It just feels weird that there was like an advisory board that was completely outside of Wizards, and there was the committee, which kind of had some Wizards people on it, and then there's Wizards itself. And it's like, to exclude the advisory board, did that come at Wizards' request, and then when this all happened, they used it to take over, or... there's like lots of potential here. And just with the way Wizards has been running things, it would not surprise me if they did something a little shady like that.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen at this point in time. There's so many questions. How are they going to manage it? Their bracket system. They've talked about this, but I guess in the future we'll see something like that. We'll see what it means. And again, it's that thing of, I have lost trust in Wizards over the last couple of years completely. Like, I had a mixed bag, especially, as I said, over the last decade. They were making a lot of bad financial choices. But I always felt like, as much as it was greedy, they weren't stepping over some lines. I don't feel like... I'm now at that point where I'm like, they will definitely step over those lines.
Yep. No, and that's the thing for me. Like, the start of the downhill for me, was the OGL debacle. Up until that point, I felt like that, at least, again, I wasn't paying attention to Wizards or Magic side. Based on what you've told me, it's been a problem, at least on that side, for a long time. But I did pay attention to things like Wizards and what they did, their policies, certain employees. And I felt like the people who were making the decisions at least had good intentions.
Yeah.
But then it felt like the corporate hand just came down around the OGL time. And it just pressed harder and harder and harder.
I think there definitely was a big shift somewhere. Like, because I can say on the Magic side, I can point out two things that I feel like were the beginning of the kind of big downfall. One, the advent of Secret Layers. Secret Layers on itself is not necessarily a bad idea, but it was very abusable, and people were worried about its abuse, and guess what direction it went in? The abusable direction. Yeah. So it's like, it's this idea that's sort of like, it's kind of like, well, if you do that right, it's not bad. Again.
And I think they attacked the Magic side because there's a lot more potential profit right away.
Yeah.
I think they waited, and I think they didn't touch 5e because, or the D&D side, because 5e was doing so well on its own.
It was doing well enough, I think, probably.
No, it was doing really well,
It's not Magic, I think is what it is, is what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's doing really well for what it is. I mean, there's a thing about RPGs that are like, they are less profitable than like a trading or a collectible card game like Magic.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I can kind of point out is Universes Beyond. I think that was just something
there's a lot of those.
And
that are just kind of like...
and the fact that they are in the eternal format times is the one thing that always worries me, especially when you have unique printings of those things. And they claim and sometimes have in, as they call it, in-universe versions of those cards, but the amount of cards they've created and the amount of actual in-universe ones they've made is starkly different. Yeah, they may eventually make an in-universe version of this really good card we made for Universes Beyond. It'll eventually happen. Then if it's something everybody wants for their stuff, they can get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll see where Wizards goes. If Hasbro and Chris Cox keeps shoving their finger up Wizards' butt, then maybe there won't be a lot of interest in D&D anymore, and we can play other RPGs for once.
Again, I think both the nature of D&D and Magic, they're not going to die. But
I agree.
But the the viability as a line the way that Hasbro wants to use it may collapse. It's sort of like that thing of like, again, I think I mentioned it last week. I was around when there was a Magic Gathering collapse, when the bubble burst.
Mm-hmm.
It can do it again.
It can. And 4E, and the 3.5 to 4E shift showed that the D&D bubble can also burst. And I have a feeling 5.5 might cause that, not because it's a bad system overall, but because of how poorly they launched it.
I can talk about that in a second, because I found a really good summary that was like an article summary about it when I was looking into our next topic. We'll talk about that at the end of it. But I do have another topic next. The next one, of course, is 2024. The Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yep.
We know a little bit about it. So
yeah, I would like to see what you have there for that, because
Okay, so I'm going to give a couple of different links here. First off, I don't know where to cut this off for the entire, with all the extra stuff.
It'll be whatever.
There is the ridiculous link for the DMG's pre-order on D&D Beyond.
I'm pretty sure I already pre-ordered it in a sense. I basically paid a company banks to be like, we'll ship you them when they come out.
The YouTube video they put out, I will link that. So that's
okay. So they did do a company
a YouTube
video.
exclusive. And there's a couple other articles on D&D Beyond. I will link. What's new article? I do have some other articles that discuss some things here and some other information related to discussion. But there's also like a smaller D&D Beyond thing about bastions and stuff like that. So, okay. I have a listing I found that is after someone watched the entire video, the afterthoughts, good and bad. Now, I'm gonna say, I didn't finish watching that video. I was trying to watch it this afternoon. I just didn't find time to watch it finally.
I didn't realize it was out until you posted it in the docket. I'm like, wait, is that out?
Yeah.
So I haven't had time to watch it.
The afterthoughts, again, were you might have to go through the video yourself to see where it is. But the good that compared it is they have a session planning sheet. That could be pretty good. Helps organize your thoughts for a session. I think that's a good idea.
I have one of those. I made it myself.
But yeah. So that's a good thing on the DMG. Prices for magic items.
So they did actually do prices for magic items, like individual prices?
Again, this is just afterthoughts of that I found, on someone's, Twitter, from someone I follow, that does other content and stuff like that. So, again, you will have to break it down yourself, but they do have prices. They liked the potion of pugilism. I saw part of this that it's supposed to look like spinach. Maybe that's why they liked it. Ha 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 ha, in the thing. It's sort of like the potion of visibility. They have it that it's it looks like it's empty. For the art, that's kind of clever stuff like that. That also adds to clever stuff. They say less magic weapon restrictions. Art is good. Lore glossary. More magic item art.
I'm going to be honest, with the player's handbook, that honestly was the most impressive part for me. Is literally every other page had art on it, and I'm like, that is a lot of art, and they made it clear that none of that is AI art. Although people keep trying to say that some parts of it are, but I just think when you buy that much art,
it isn't AI art. But
I know
what there are some reuses from other D&D and Magic sources.
Yes, I saw that. I mean, that I picked up. But no, there have been a few people who have been like, oh, look at this weirdly shaped thing. It's AI art. And I'm like, when you buy this much art from this many people, you're going to have weird stuff sometimes.
The bad that the person had for thoughts was sample adventures are only half a page long. So I think it's the idea that it's very short sample adventures. It doesn't give you much... I think it's the idea you could have made those a little better to make them a bigger idea for samples.
I honestly, I mean, again, I haven't seen it, but I think that might.
That's one that I'm like, I would like to see what that half a page is before I make a decision on it.
Because part of me goes like, they're not going to print like a full like short adventure, you know, like Minds of Phandelver.
Oh no, but like
into the back of a book. So
but,
like,
but depending on it, like a half a page could just be like an adventure hook. Honestly,
what I would probably think it would be is kind of like an idea plus some monsters would be probably what it is. You know,
pretty simple.
Yeah, but I honestly would consider that fine for the purposes of generating ideas for a dungeon master. This is not a, you know, a adventure book.
Well,
this is a DMG meant to help you get your juices flowing. So I would consider that most likely fine.
Again, I think it will depend on the context. I think the ideas of the sample adventures are to help newer people get an idea of how adventures are run, and a half a page is probably not enough of it. For a seasoned DM to have ideas for an adventure, yes, but I think it's less that it's supposed to be for a seasoned DM and more it's supposed to be for new DMs. And I don't know if that's enough for a new DM.
I think that very much depends, because I mean, like,
again,
I know, yeah,
we will have to see its context.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that I want to see its context. Or like maybe I'll have to watch the full video myself and see what you say about it, because that might give some context too. There's a lot of bloat in here. They have 10 different tracker pages for different things to track. For different types of track. I don't know much about that. I'd have to see those. The map art are black and white grids. So very simple. They didn't do anything. I mean, again, that's like, I think that's a disadvantage because they have a lot of good art everywhere else. They could have done something really fancy for the maps, so they could do that. You know. It might feel different from the other art.
Like, the reason... Here's... Well, I almost had a good reason. And then I realized that's a bad reason because of what they do. I was about to say, yeah, but, like, if they're just black and white, that makes them very easy to print. And I'm like, wait, but they don't have PDFs.
They described the Bastion system as very video gamey. Which, I don't know if I would like or dislike that. I think it's very situational for that one. I'm going to call it, I would want to learn about more Bastion system. The crafting system is Bastion only. The crafting system that they're putting in the DMG, you have to use with the Bastion system.
That really depends on how it actually works. If the idea is, because there's a crafting in the core book is very, or in the player's handbook is very basic. It's basically the same thing as they did before, just cheaper. And you can make it cheaper with multiple people.
I think what it means by that is I would need a place of my own, which again, a Bastion could take many forms, a base of operations, and a specific room in which to do any kind of like specific larger crafting. I can't just do it. Therefore, I need a base. Therefore, I need a Bastion.
That honestly, this doesn't sound like a big deal to me because I feel like
okay,
well then you can just join. Then there can just be a group which lets you use their stuff, and then you just use basically that rules.
Again, that's up to a GM to do that kind of things, but I think rules as written doesn't allow it because they don't have prices or ideas of doing that. You know. I think the idea is to have you have a Bastion once. I did see part of... I got like a couple minutes of the Bastion video too before I was like, oh, I ran out of time. And because I was like, that's smaller, I was going to do that one afterwards. And it does sound like they really do like the idea of this as a much more important part of their system as they're doing it now, that you're based out of a place. That is yours in particular, and you can control and have choices for it. And program little things and have them do automatic. No, I mean, I think that's a video game. Let's see here.
I did see the trackers. I think the ones they show near the end do look good. D&D character tracker, basically. Okay, I can see some problems here, but ultimately, just from the little snippets they show. They do a section that's player motivation. I just saw this. I was looking at the other ones. The other ones I think are okay. But the player motivation tracker is... It's bad to pigeonhole people. And that might actually cause new GMs to pigeonhole people, which is actually problematic. Basically, it says player motivation: acting, exploring, fighting, investigating, optimizing, problem solving, socializing, and storytelling. Good list. I'm going to say that. Good list. I try and figure out what people are. Like, there's one on here that is missing, and I'd probably say, I don't know how I'd put this, but like basically the person who sits back and watches is actually a type of player. That is not a bad player to have. I would have put Lynn in that category. You say she works better in other ones and is more interactive, but as far as I saw her, I would see her as someone who sits back and watches.
Again, I'm going to tell you, the days that Lynn is better are, and which is not every day for those games, it's usually the days that Lynn is off, and we start those games at 6:30.
Yeah. So I understand that, but she does enjoy it's one, and that's the thing. People can have just different aspects with different characters and different adventures. In this adventure, as she was playing it, she just liked to sit back and watch, and she enjoyed it as she was falling asleep.
I think it's just a lot of system. It wasn't a good game for Lynn to beat.
I agree. Timing. I also just think she wasn't clicking with it, probably also because of the timing. But honestly, I could tell she was enjoying herself. Which is still an important thing, and that's not this is why I am against pigeonholing people, because I'm saying she's like that, but you're saying she's not.
Speaking of
both of those can be correct.
Speaking of those, apparently a bunch of the rules they talked about are specifically the rules basically take a little bit more agency away from the DM and put it more towards players, even though it's the DMG. So it creates a more DM versus player kind of situation, unfortunately.
That I would have to watch the video to know what that means.
Yeah. Custom background information is in the DMG, not the player's handbook.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Remember in the player's handbook, they had custom backgrounds and rules for that.
Yep.
That's in the DMG now.
Oh, yeah. I think they were originally saying they were going to put that in the player's handbook, but I guess they didn't.
Nope.
This
was a little petty, but I agree with to a degree. I agree with some of the pettiness. Stuff from Tasha's and Xanathar that they put in there that they're reprinting, they call new in the DMG. Which they did a bunch of that kind of shit in the player's handbook too. It's like that feels petty, but they've been doing it since the player's handbook.
Yeah.
DMG
in fact, they should have done that with the Ranger.
DMG is $60. In comparison to the price of Player's Handbook, which I think is $50 or $30 online.
Which is better. I think it's better that the main book is cheaper.
I'm going to play it by, most of the time, all the books were the same price, so this is just slightly more expensive. Whether it's good or bad, I'm going to keep it by, again, it's more expensive. It should have enough to make up for that price. That's all I'm expecting. So that's a keep in mind. Because it's more expensive.
This is the book I actually have the highest expectations for, and I want the most. I need to double check to make sure that the thing I did allow me to buy all three, because I remember I bought it from a store that was like, oh, I'm buying all three, and they'll ship them to me as they come out. But I just need to double check that that's the case. Otherwise, I'll need to figure this out. Yeah, there's the thing
see what they say, just to make sure I can put them a little bit.
Yeah, they do have a bunch of little printouts. Part of me is just where are you going? Are you just gonna print these out? How do you print these out? You have to scan them and then print them? They have little caricatures and pictures on them that I'm why would you want that? I do like that they have a magic item tracker to actually basically be hey, give your characters magic items. Xanathar's Guide actually is basically the same as Xanathar's Guide, except that they give you one rare at level 1 to 4 versus no rare. I think Xanathar's just said no rares, just common and uncommon. And then gave you certain numbers that are supposed to be consumable and not.
So apparently, Bastion's... I'm getting some stuff from some other places. that level 5 players start by being able to create bastions in the normal in the normal rules.
I'm curious how much they're going to steal from I mean, I shouldn't say steal, but I'm curious how much this is going to overlap with the Bastion rules from, I want to say Kingdoms and Warfare, but that's not the right book. But Matt Colville's book about that. I have that somewhere. Did I put that in D&D or just other? Let's see. Let's see if I can find this.
Just being pictures.
Alright, well, this isn't immediately available to me. Where did I put this?
Always a good question.
I mean, I mostly just want to remember what this is called, so I just need to find the title. But yeah, well, anyway, there's Kingdoms in Warfare, which is his book more about high-level conflicts. And then there's his other one, which I think is something Bastion, you know, so.
Again, like, I think this feels like it's going to be... It feels like it's a mixed bag right now, but that doesn't mean there isn't some very good things in there. I'll say that. They haven't really impressed me with their show-off.
Let me put it this way.
I do want to see the video.
Here's my thoughts on this. Yeah. It can't be worse than the last DMG.
You know, you're not wrong. That's a very good point. It can't be worse than what it was. But I did see a really good review of the Player's Handbook, because we started talking about that when we were kind of switching between the Magic, which gave some very good at-a-glance information and some deep dives into this, which was beginner-friendly design, expanded customization, weapon mastery system, balance concerns. There's still balance troubles in the Player's Handbook. Crafting system was disappointed there. Very beautiful outbook. No backwards compatibility, but a great value. I mean, $50 physical is fine. It's about the same price as they've always been, and $30 digital. I have my misgivings about it, but you're getting it digital and you're getting it on D&D Beyond anyway, because they don't have PDFs.
My big worry about going digital is that it's going to turn in, like, I can just, because of the way the corporate hands pressing down, I'm seeing it's going to be I guarantee you this is going to happen. This is why I don't want to buy their digital books. It's going to be, you have to buy books, but then you're also going to have to pay a subscription at some point. I guarantee you're going to have to pay a subscription at some point.
Again, that's why I just don't trust non-PDFs, because PDFs, at very least, you have a copy of them. That's why so many other companies, when they have PDFs, I'm like, I give you a thumbs up and support this. Wizards is the only people that don't do that, and it feels so shady every time they don't give a goddamn PDF.
Here's the thing. I was considering doing all of this stuff until the OGL debacle. But also part of me is like, you know, might be worth having all of this online in a digital format that I can go and search through and do whatever. I wasn't super impressed with it, though, is part of the issue. But even more so, after that, I started to see this as a way, as a potential cash grab site, which is they're going to try and make as much money off of it as possible. And what's the best way to do that? Subscriptions and microtransactions and all that stuff. I mean, they already basically have microtransactions, but...
Well, it may or may not get worse when it comes to their new VTT. We have no idea what they're going to do. It's sort of like, it might be fine. It might be fine. I'm just going to keep saying it. It might be fine. But given their track record and what they are doing, I just don't trust them not to basically do microtransactions.
Yep. I just, well, okay, they are going to do microtransactions in the VTT. That actually won't bother me as much because at least it looks like it's going to be a very good VTT, and you'll only need to buy what you need. That doesn't bother me.
I guess what I mean by
subscriptions
is
and stuff, and
the super nitpick like microtransactions that are overpriced. I think that's more what I'm worried about. Like,
probably.
Okay, it's sort of like there's a difference between buying art packs and buying a fireball spell art, or something like that. If you want the fancy fireball that makes a neat explosion for, all you and your players. It's horse armor.
Yeah.
It's the subtlety of what they're kind of peddling, and I think that'll make a difference. In my opinion.
That doesn't bother me though. Like the horse armor thing didn't bother me with Elder Scrolls because you didn't need it.
Again, I do to a degree agree with that, but it was sort of like, for me, it was very much so the principle of the thing. If you're going to go this kind of weird and negative, it means you can easily do worse.
I agree. I mean, let's be real. See, that's the thing, though, is like, part of me is like, that was long before Bethesda went downhill. It wasn't like people were like, oh, it was a sign of where they were going. I'm like, no. Them reprinting or re-releasing Skyrim for the third time was probably the sign that they were going downhill.
I'm not gonna lie, the horse armor stuff was a sign that, like, God, you guys are kind of awful for me. As soon as I heard that,
that's interesting. Yeah.
I had no trust with them from the beginning, though. I came in to really them during. Did I get to Skyrim before I got into the Fallout games?
Oblivion was my first game, and then I played Fallout 3.
No, Oblivion was my first. That's right. I did Oblivion, and that was where I was introduced to it. And I'm sorry.
Technically, I got Morrowind first. Technically.
I had played Morrowind, but I didn't own Morrowind. My uncle had it. He was playing through it, and I played a little bit of that. It was very nice.
Basically, what happened was I was like 12, so basically it was barely like, and I wanted to get like Oblivion, but Oblivion was like T or something. No, sorry, I was much older than that. But Oblivion got changed to M when the Sheogorath DLC came out. So even though it was a T originally, it got changed to M, so I couldn't buy it, and so I had to wait for my parents, and I bought Morrowind in the meantime and played that for a while.
I think for me, what really showed me that was I played through Oblivion, and I got to the Sheogorath DLC because I had the entire pack. I think it was like the anniversary edition or something on, is that PS3? I think it was PS3. I had Oblivion. Yes. Anyway, I played through the shit of it, and then I got to Sheogorath stuff, and it killed my game. I was already having massive crashing issues constantly, but I got to a point where I had to save and autosave, and unless I went back like 12 hours and skipped all this other stuff I had done, I got to a point where I loaded up the game, it was running like ass, and if I moved like 100 feet forward, it would crash.
What system did you have?
PS3.
Okay.
I could not play.
To be fair, I do know there were a lot of issues with Oblivion that could cause performance issues if you played it for too long. I didn't have that issue though.
Because I did everything, and I think that's the thing too. It's because your save keeps getting larger and larger and larger, and it's causing more and more issues the longer you play. And that's what I did, and that taught me not to trust Bethesda. So this is what I. But again,
their games have always been jank like
I
that.
I think it's sort of like, Player's Handbook. It's a mediocre thing. If you're starting, it's probably not a terrible place to be at. If you want to switch over, well, it's a bitch. Honestly, also, the day one errata.
The idea of having a session planner is a good idea. personally, I would say if you want to learn how to plan, this is what actually I used as a base and then customized it from there. How to be a lazy dungeon master. Or Guide to the Lazy Dungeon Master. Hold on, I actually have this book as well. I actually know where this one is.
I think the thing is,
The Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. That's
I'm
the book
also
you want to look
worried
at for how to plan.
The DMG is going to need a whole bunch of errata, just like the Player's Handbook.
I suspect, based off the Player's Handbook thing and the fact that they have a bit more time, no, they don't have enough time. Never mind.
It's 2 months.
Yeah.
A month
I was about to say they probably already printed most of them.
Yeah. And I don't trust that they didn't notice stuff before now, because I mean it's them, and there's so little trust in these things. But anyway, I think we can kind of leave this one here. We do have to see more. I'll try to see the full video this week to maybe give a little bit more of an impression on it next time we kind of talk about it, more than just like other people's arguments about it. And maybe we'll see some more spoilers and stuff.
Yeah, there might be some more, because they did do a lot of stuff for the Player's Handbooks. They might do a few more talks about certain sections of it, like they did with the classes.
Definitely, I get the feeling that we'll probably see.
I mean, they want them pre-order sales.
Yeah, they do. They do. Alright. So, I haven't been doing a lot of talk about Munchkin. But we do have 2 that were released this last week, actually. So I thought, hey, why not? We'll talk about them a little bit. The first off is, of course, Munchkin Shadowrun. So now you can do Munchkin in Shadowrun in Munchkin form. It's kind of neat. They've done a lot of these. They did Pathfinder. I don't think they've done D&D. They've done so many different ones.
I'm fairly certain they've not done D&D.
Yeah, I think that's what they... If they had an opportunity, they would. Well, no, they have technically done D&D, but in a different way. Back in 3.5 era, they just set of Munchkin books that were basically Munchkin D&D because of third-party stuff. So they had a monster manual, a player's handbook, and stuff for playing Munchkin characters in 3.5. They did that.
Okay, so yeah, most of these Munchkin games, but so probably the closest is a Critical Role Munchkin.
I've probably Munchkin 3.3 edition monster
So Warhammer 40K.
Oh, the Munchkin D20 manual of the OP from 2003. So yeah, it was the Munchkin stuff where it was very much looked like the 3.5, 3.0 monster. So the Munchkin, it would be D20 stuff. Yeah. And then a player's handbook that had the same kind of look too. So I just think it's those two.
Yeah, they definitely worked more with Pathfinder. Like I know they even did some jokes or used some terminology in one of them from like from Starfinder.
I know they did an entire like Pathfinder
they did
a set.
Yeah, they did a Pathfinder set, but that was I think based off Pathfinder 1 way back in the day. Yeah. And then they did one where they kind of referenced Starfinder. I remember like I remember we talked about it, and I was surprised that they had a lot of terminology. I'm like, I've heard that before, and then I realized, wait, that's where I heard it before. So it was like one of the things they did, where like one of the races in it was, they've done 3 Pathfinder ones at least.
Yeah. The other one is a like a expansion that's more undead and stuff. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like
it's cool. It's just a basic expansion.
Yeah, there's actually a Munchkin Pathfinder 3, so they've done at least 3 of them. I'm looking at all the Munchkin products right now.
They've done a lot. So it's fine that they did a Shadowrun one, I think. I mean, again, they just have a little bit of everything for Munchkin at this point in time, so... Mm-hmm. I'm glad they're still doing stuff. Apparently Steve Jackson Games is planning a lot more next year. I don't know if these are very exciting ones, but they're there. We'll see.
Oh, yeah, and then there was just a Munchkin Starfinder, just straight up. Yeah, okay, I found that. There was another one which they referenced some Starfinder stuff, but then they did do just a straight up Starfinder one.
Because I think the Starfinder one, they were taking a lot of inspiration from their own space-based Munchkin, Star Munchkin, that they did much earlier, which was one of their generic ones.
Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah, we got some interesting Munchkins that are new, if you're interested in them. I still like basic Munchkin, so like when they have an expansion for the basic game, I mean it's cool, but like they have 1 million of them, so I don't know if I can necessarily like suggest buying all of them, because it's like, what, how many do they have that are base Munchkin expansions?
Let's see. Well, I don't know how many they have total, but... So 24 per page and 10 pages of Munchkin products.
Yeah,
so 240 Munchkin products.
They stopped numbering the expansions like a long time ago. They did like 8 core expansions, which are all like these 56 card expansions. So I mean, like this is another core Munchkin expansion. Just I don't know how many. And then the shadow. Anyway,
let's see. So it's 240 minus 6 is 234 Munchkin products.
They've done way too many. Like I think back in the day, I joked about how many
combinations of multiple.
Yeah, I joked about like fluxes and stuff. And Flux has a lot, but Flux has like maybe like 2 or 3 dozen instead of hundreds.
To be fair, we did miss one. Did we talk about Munchkin Warhammer 40k?
We might have. I don't remember.
That came out in August.
Oh, that came out in August. Was it the same one, or it was a reprint? I thought it wasn't new in August. Or maybe we might have talked about it when it was on Kickstarter. We have talked about a few of the Munchkins that are on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's an unusual one to do. But... So,
it came out in August.
Well, this is an interesting thing that is some preservation from D&D 3.5. So basically, Wizards effectively removed from their website a massive amount of the articles and stuff they had put together for 3.5 over the years. So it's all gone. It would be, but someone saved it. I'm going to give the article I found about it, and I think this person's Reddit post I'm going to give too, because that will link to the... oh yeah, I gotta really like cut this and its like stuff again. Yeah. If I just cut that, is that enough for you to show you? Yes, cool. I'm changing the link. This is a much better and much shorter link. There you go. It's still long, but it's not as abominably long as it was just a minute ago. Anyway, so effectively what it is 1,281 pages of informations Wizards of the Coast put out, official stuff on their website, with rule supplements, other supplements, resources, all for 3.5. This was them doing like Unearthed Arcana kind of stuff, all those kind of things, all putting it together. Some of the stuff might have ended up in books, some of it might not have, but this was all their stuff they put up online for all the years they supported 3.5.
Yeah, this would almost be like them deleting all of their Dragon magazines that they did for 4E.
Yeah. I think it's exactly the same kind of thing. It's like...
Yeah.
It's like... Well, it's like...
a lot of... I mean, like, I know Dragon had a lifespan, I think, before 4E, but...
Yeah.
I know 4E, they did a lot of stuff. Like, I don't... Like, they put a lot of stuff about 4E in, or, like, a lot of basically creatures and class features and stuff for a game that has like a bunch of class options. They put a lot of them in those books and stuff too. So
yeah, I mean, like, this is digital content that would have been lost. Unfortunately, this is something that we kind of have to deal with a lot of ways sometimes. But
I question and that Wizards would have deleted this. They may have removed it from the web, but I question that them actually deleting this. It's not like that one thing where it's like a new company took over and they deleted all the game stuff from that thing a while back.
I'm going to say,
a few weeks ago.
It's one of those issues with when it's no longer
Game
out
Informer?
there. Well, I'm going to go on this on an end that is sort of like a different direction, but kind of something similar. When you think about things like TV shows, especially older TV shows, where sometimes we've lost entire episodes because they didn't have them out anywhere, they didn't have them on any kind of thing provided for people, and someone just kept the material somewhere. Yes, they might still have these thousands of pages somewhere online, but not online, but on one of their computers. It doesn't mean it couldn't be deleted.
It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that, like, someone will, like, crash the hard drive and be like, well, need a new one. Oh, there went all that stuff.
Yeah, it's...
No, I
with
get
it. With it not online anymore, it is easier for it to disappear,
Yep.
So, yeah, they might still have it, but certainly speaking, if you want to get this, I downloaded it. I have, some stuff from 3.5 still. I don't know if I will ever actually revisit playing 3.5. Maybe I will, just for shits and giggles someday. Like, if I find a 3.5 adventure that I'm like, I'm going to play this for nostalgia's sake. It's like one of the one-book adventures. Maybe this would be helpful for that. I don't know. It's a bloated mess of a system. Even worse than Pathfinder ever got to. 1E. 1E got bloated. It's not 3.5. But there is something to this, because it is, again, officials Wizards stuff they put out. This isn't third party. This is all stuff people at Wizards did. So keep that in mind if you're interested in it. And it's just something to check out historically. It's kind of neat. I like that someone did that. Alright.
I'll probably go and get this in a bit.
Preservation.
I mean, that's the thing. That's why I dislike, to be fair, the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine is actually being sued right now. Or at least they were a few months ago. I don't know how that resolved. But yeah, they were a whole thing. To be fair, they were being dumb and actually, like, uploading books onto their site that, like, were copywritten.
Of course.
As a preservation purpose, which is problematic. Like, yeah, but anyway. But
there is
like,
issues with it.
Yeah, so it's like, it's really annoying that, like, there is that kind of issue where it's like people trying to preserve then get sued because, yeah.
People control the copyright and want to control the information.
Yep.
It's something that's already... But I think it's the difference between something that's already been published to the world and something that was more popular, Like, the thing is, a lot of the stuff was offered... If it's something that's been offered for free in the beginning with, I feel like it's kind of like a weird thing for it. But, again, it's a discussion for...
Yeah, like, I don't think they'll sue this person unless they're really dumb. But here's the thing, they could, because they technically own the website and the information.
Yeah, again, it's a mix. It's this weird thing of, like, you really don't want to infringe in this case a lot of times on people and their ownerships and stuff, but there's stuff that can be lost to the ages if we don't preserve it a lot of times. You know?
And I think that's the real thing where it's like, yeah. It's I think we need some exceptions to certain types of. Well, first off, we need copyrights to not be dumb anymore. But anyway,
that's not happening anytime soon. Cough, cough, Nintendo and patents for power. We'll see how that goes. Anyway,
it's actually in America, Disney's the one who's actually does the most lobbying for extended copyrights.
I did 2 S's on this one. That's okay. Anyway, Mongoose Publishing has purchased 2 games, game systems, Twilight 2000 and 2300 AD. Now, Twilight 2000, we've talked about before. It's actually published by Freeland. In this release, they said they're going to have Free League continue for the current license periods, and they're expected to continue to have Free League be the publisher for that. So they own the game, Twilight 2000, but they're kind of like, we don't want to mess with you guys over here already publishing it for us. We just own it now, you know?
Yeah, also, them purchasing 23 AD is expected after they purchase Traveler, because it's just an extension of Traveler.
Okay. See, that's information that you know. That's a good one to hear about.
Yeah, 23 AD, or 23,000 AD, or 2300 AD is basically, it was an offshoot that was made of Traveler, but it's basically the Traveler universe, but it's like just after humans like left Earth, and there's no jump drives yet. It's still so it's like much lower tech. It's not like the so it's like humans just getting into the universe.
Okay.
Is what 2300 AD is.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they bought Traveler, this was coming. I didn't realize they were separate licenses anyway. I thought they were combined, but apparently 23 AD was separate enough to where they needed to get the license for that separately.
Again, I think it's one of those things is sometimes offshoots are technically their own things then too, a lot of times. Or they become that,
Yep.
so that's probably just what happened.
Yeah, because they've been publishing 2300 AD stuff for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Already.
So, again, Mongoose is the people that do Traveler and a lot of that stuff, so we're going to be able to see more 23 AD stuff. And Twilight 2000, I'm curious what direction that's going to take, because that's one that I didn't know a lot about I knew that Free League published it. I didn't know about the producers of the game at all. That's something like that was beyond my knowledge, so it'll be interesting just to see how that goes out. You know, again, it seems like they're just like, hey, you know, we own this now. We're still okay with you guys publishing it, and yeah, they expect to keep publishing it with them even after their current period of the license for doing that ends. So keep the deal running. Again, like it could be because they publish stuff at Mongoose. It could just be also a little easier this way, because then they don't have to take over the publishing.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's already like a setup for it over at Free League, so it's sort of like they don't have to establish.
They will eventually. It says they're only going to be doing it for the current publishing period, license period.
The sentence after that is, as things stands, we have every expectation it will stay in their capable hands beyond.
Oh, beyond that. Sorry, you know, sometimes when you read stuff quick, you miss whole sections.
Yeah. So I think it's just like, because with them already, it might be easy enough that they don't have to move things up.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a neat little thing. Oh, you were gonna say something?
No, well, I was basically just gonna say, like, yeah, you're probably right about them. Like, they already have ways of distributing it, and they think changing hands might affect that in some way. And,
like, it's, if you take it over, you might have to take over the reprints and control of anything that's already out there, kind of thing, too.
Depends on how the license works, but yes, that's a possibility.
Well, I think usually when I hear as a publisher, it means that you're kind of, like, running the, like, you're kind of doing like a lot of the supply chain, ensuring things get printed out, kind of things like that, and you're the publisher and stuff. That's why I always think about that for like, especially written.
Yeah.
So that's why. And they've added them both to their fair use policy that Mongoose has. So you know, if you're interested in any kind of changes, especially if you're doing Twilight 2000 and it's changed hands, you can check out their fair use policy. Alright. Shall we talk about a board game based on a video game? Don't we love these? They happen so much. But in this case, it is Valheim. I played a lot of Valheim.
Oh, this game, yeah.
Yeah. Well, apparently they're doing a 1 to 4 player cooperative board game that is based on it. So, resource gathering, building weapons and armor, battling evil creatures. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I can kind of see like this kind of game as kind of work. It looks interesting. I liked Valheim. It probably, again, sheds a lot of what would be in the full, you know, original video game version of it. Like a lot of some of the concepts aren't bad to translate to a board game. Turns out, like, survival/resource management games work very well in board game form.
They do.
Let's see here. Yeah. They look like monsters. It looks like they are planning a couple of add-ons and stuff like that already.
Yeah, well, there's definitely some that are like, they show like standees, which are like the things which like are cutouts that have the thing, and they also show like actual models or 3D models. So I think like depending on your tier, you might be able to get the 3D model version.
Yeah, you pay for a little bit more for like the expected. Interestingly enough, also it's the rules are made for 1 to 4 players, so it's not like a solo mode. You can just solo the board game if you want to. No different rules. I'm guessing like because you have to face like certain bosses and stuff, and it's you facing it alone. You know, rules don't need to change. You're choosing to. I guess maybe it's just a little bit of extra challenge. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like the deluxe edition has the moves.
Yeah, there's also a version where you can get the actual like is this a stretch goal? Collector's. Oh yeah, the collector's edition allows you to have the 3D printing files for the miniatures as well.
Ooh.
That's like one of those like super expensive ones though. That one's like, how much was it? Yeah, like $250.
Yeah, they have their own dice sets. If you want a boat miniature, you can get that. That's neat.
How much does a 3D printer cost?
Ooh. It used to be a couple, like the cheapest ones I heard about used to be like $400 or $500, but that was many, many years ago. They might be cheaper now. I think they're supposed to be down to a couple hundred, maybe?
200 is like a very simple one that's like not very good, and then you can get, but like decent ones go 500, 1500, and then professional ones are 2,500 plus.
Okay, so that it is cheaper than what I remember, because again, like I thought the bare bones minimum was around 500 last time I heard. So hey, the bare bones was. Yeah, it probably was. So it's like, hey, they've dropped in price. They're better, but still like. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. It says yeah. So basic ones are like 200 to like a bit. A hobbyist is what they call the next tier, and then professional.
Yeah. It's funded. It's got 16 days to go. It's on
Sorry, just saying a thing. That just reminded me that I've like wanted to buy one at some point, and I'm like, you know what? I might be able to do that now. I'll have to look into that.
You can take a look at all the different rewards and stuff like that. It all looks neat, you know. I'm not going to dive too deep into how it's played, but again, like seeing what they say for how it's played. Oh, we're gathering resources, crafting stuff, and then using that to fight monsters. Great, and then fighting like a final boss. Cool. Okay, I know the loop of this game.
Yeah,
I've played similar games, but this is one with a Valhiem skin, which I don't mind. You know, again, it's like, I don't mind playing similar games. I play plenty of resource management games. They all play a little differently. That's flavor adds the stuff to it, you know. And this is just another one. Plays a little differently. Kind of neat. Cool.
I do find it interesting. I did not realize Valheim was popular enough to get like a spin-off thing.
Get a board game? That's a good point. Like, it was pretty damn popular for a while, I think, because a lot of people stream. I still see people stream it occasionally.
Apparently, it's still fairly popular. Like, that's the thing, is like a few months, like a year and a half after. In fact, I still think it's getting updates.
It is.
Full release is, I think, out, but it's still getting updates.
Is its full release out?
I think it's considered a full release.
Direct version.
It released in early access. Their current version here.
Is Valheim fully released? That's your question.
I'm just gonna go to the Steam page. Oh, no, I'm still early access. Never mind.
Yeah, I knew they'd they were doing stuff, and they put out stuff with Wastelands and stuff. I think I did see that they had, like, earlier this year, like, a pretty major update for one of, like, the Legions and stuff. So they were still working on some Legions.
I thought they had been, like, considered fully released at one point, and they're still adding stuff, like some games do, like Minecraft, basically.
Yeah, but I assume it's probably going to be, probably not as bad as, but probably more similar to something like 7 Days that takes a while, because they're probably going to have, like, a huge team to do it. Like, 7 Days, it's one
7
point...
Days, they also just didn't have a clear, release criteria until, like, they finally just decided, this is our release criteria.
Yeah. Like, the 7 Days to Die full release, I think, came out, yeah. So, it's technically not early access, I believe.
Yeah, 7 Days is still out.
Yeah. Yeah, it left early access in June 2024.
Yep, it's very recent. I remember that, because I remember actually seeing that and being like, I should play that, and then not doing so.
I thought about that, too, and I have to play that. Well, there's a couple of games that I really want to revisit, but, like, again,
we should do that together. It is
7 Days. It is multiplayer. We probably get Blaze, you know. I also want to, like, I still keep thinking about playing through a game of Stellaris with all the updates, because I haven't played with a lot of the newer updates, like the last, like, 3 things that came out for it. I like these games. But one of these days. Anyway, so Valheim, the board game, it looks cool. If you want to check it out and see, GameFound, it's there. Check it out yourself. So, I just want to talk about this one because it's interesting. Atlas Games has put Ars Magica on open license, or is crowdfunding for it. For immediate release, Ars Magica is becoming open license via crowdfunding.
Post the link and I'll see what I can decipher.
Yeah, sorry. I knew they're trying to go... it's like a crowdfunding thing for open license, which I don't necessarily understand why you need to do that, but I guess there's a reason behind it. Because open license is different, isn't it?
Yes.
And it might require, like, funding to legally put it that way.
A legally blind agreement that gives permission to use, modify, and share work with few restrictions. Open yeah, so basically it's a little basically yeah, I remember how this works though.
Yeah.
It's if I remember correctly, it's basically the use with attribution kind of thing. Basically, as long as you don't claim it's your own, you're okay. Oh, they also have open license has restrictions on how to use it, but they tend to be very few. Basically,
Stewards of an incredible piece of role playing. I'm looking at their kind of like direction page or something. Okay, so they're basically it's opening up the copyright. Again, they still might have some trademarks related to things because trademark and copyright are different, but they want to open up the copyright to like the community kind of as a whole.
That's nice, actually. Yeah, and that's basically what it is. It's open license basically means you can use it. You can basically say you can make something that you call Ars Magica. Well, yeah, but you still have to say, oh, it's based off this. That's about it. It's not like D&D where you have to say like it's a supplement of D&D. You know, you can actually say, oh no, this is my Ars Magica version. You know, as long as you say these people still own it. Don't.
Okay.
Also, don't.
Okay, I see what's going on. I see what's going on. What they're doing is the crowdfunding is not necessarily crowdfunding anything in particular. It kind of is, but it's also opening it up and allowing them to do this legally, basically paying for that. And it's that what you're really getting out of it is a deluxe version of the 5th edition game, with expanded rules and over 600 color pages for helping them with this. So you get a really cool-looking book.
This actually might be worth it for me because I've always wanted to run Ars Magica, I just don't know if anyone would ever want it. It is the most ridiculous role-playing game as far as like rules go.
Yeah.
Like basically imagine your players having to know the rule book like inside and out in order just to play the game, and that's basically Ars Magica.
Because I'm assuming it does require like money and legal stuff to do some of these things. You know, it's like we talk about how like Wizards is putting stuff in Creative Commons. That they have the funding to do that very easily. You know, that is a thing you have to like put stuff together for. It's not.
I mean,
easy.
you have to hire lawyers, and get like pay for record changes and blah blah blah.
Well, apparently one of their stretch goals they're planning is to put this then under Creative Commons attribution, even more than just an open license.
I feel okay. I'm gonna say part of this is them just doing it to get some money. I guarantee you. I'm
sure
because it's not. The idea of putting it into Creative Commons is actually pretty easy as far as I understand. I think it's just a way for them to sell the books and build up some hype and get some attention.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's good press anyway, because again, it allows people to, as they say, adapt, build upon the mechanics and setting and sell those without any repercussions. Without having to worry
Kickstarter, is it a Kickstarter or is the crowd? Where do you crowd?
Backer kit on October 15th. It will begin at 11 a.m. Central. So in about 10 days from now, this will go.
Okay.
But it looks like
if I remember, I'll probably look into it.
It is a very interesting thing, though, so I kind of wanted to definitely shout it out there. So, Catalyst Labs still makes stuff. What do I mean by that? They don't put out a lot of products.
Who?
The people that do Shadowrun and Battletech, though more lately it's just Battletech, unfortunately.
About Battletech.
It's cool. I like Battletech a little bit. I played a little bit back in the day when it was more the miniatures / role-playing game, when it was both of them. Well, at least it's the version I played. MechWarrior / Battletech. Anyway, they're doing a big book that's basically combining. It's a lore book, a lore bible, if you will.
That's fun.
For $20 PDF, you can get this massive like lore bible that they're putting together of like thousands of years of history on the Battletech universe, all together. So yeah, I mean, again, there are certain campaigns that have been in certain time periods that helps with it because yeah, I do remember that's one of those issues is you have to know what time period you're playing in too, and of the Battletech universe, and having a thing where it might be able to define those separate areas and get you an idea of what's going on with all the different things doing that. Awesome. So,
it's kind of Cosmic Patrol. Sorry, I was just looking at what games they own. Them is Cosmic Patrol.
I'm
just like,
no
what is
clue
that?
off the top of my head.
I don't even know by looking at it. So,
yeah, like I feel like Battletech is one of those games that has a glut of lore, a lot more than a lot of others. Kind of like, you know, when you're taking a look at like 40K from the outside, Warhammer, it has a glut of lore from a lot of sources, and it can be very, like, hard to get into. Battletech's a little similar. Warhammer probably still has more lore because they've been, you know, though, again, similar ages, but they have certainly been more popular. But it doesn't mean it's not a lot. So it's cool to see that we're getting this combined book that if you are interested in learning about the world, running it too, because you get the rules still from Catalyst. They do have books and rules that are more up-to-date. And check it out. Cool.
They also own something called Leviathans, which is just... I'm not sure if this got released, because most of the stuff I see here are alpha, beta, alpha, beta.
Catalysts. They do things.
Yep.
Anyway. Just got a couple more small topics to handle. So why don't we talk about a Humble? The Renegade Games is putting out a World of Darkness for 2024. Humble. I'm not gonna lie. I might get this for 2 of the books that are on here for the $18. Not for the physical stuff, because they're also putting in copies of their
book?
rivals.
And the werewolf.
The werewolf and the hunter 5th edition. Yes.
Oh, there's a hunter 5th edition.
There's a hunter 5th edition. Now, I'm going to tell you, hunter 5th edition. I learned about it recently. It's not Hunter the Reckoning. It's basically Hunter the Vigil.
Okay.
Vigil's the one from Chronicles of Darkness.
Okay.
Yeah. In that one, people were just normal people and had no powers. Reckoning, the original one, people had kind of like weird powers.
Vigil. So Vigil is
Vigil. You could get powers, but it was hard to do.
Yes.
I remember. Yes.
Well, okay. So basically, there were a few organizations which had different ways of giving you powers, if you were like good enough in their organization. But they also had rules for just playing generic hunters.
Original Reckoning, originally people were imbued with powers or something. Like it was the fact of being exposed to supernatural basically unlocked something with you being able to tap into the supernatural. It was kind of the again.
I think the weirdest one in in the Vigil is just the church one, which is basically just you have God-given powers, but it's like it's just so weird in a world where it's like a god machine is controlling everything. It's like, wait, what's going on here?
I think that's the thing is, out of all the stuff here, the Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition, even though it's not 5th edition, because they only had 1 edition technically, so it's technically their second, whatever. They like 5th for everything. I don't mind
unify everything. I actually prefer that than for them to basically say like this is 5th, this is 4th.
Yeah, I can kind of agree at this point in time to unify them. It's fine. I had my complaints when they originally did it, but it's fine to unify it now. I don't mind that it's more like the Vigil. I'm not gonna lie, that is a fine way of playing. I liked the original way that Hunter did it, with the powers and stuff, but I can understand where people would come in one where they just want to be simple, normal hunters.
Yep, I like that better, honestly.
I can see people liking that better. There's more interesting storylines, but I did like some of the story directions for the original, the way they did it, that were very interesting to me with the imbued powers and stuff like that. There was some actually really interesting stories, but I feel like it's that kind of like opposite. It's that story. It's that kind of like I would like to be able to choose to do both of them, honestly, because it's kind of like I like having both options.
I mean, Hunter the Vigil, I think, does have some options for that.
Again, like, I remember that someone was talking about this very recently when they were talking about the Hunter
I'd have to look at
games. Because those are based on the powers stuff, you know? I don't know. Because the powers were interesting, but they were never, like, vampire powers, or werewolf powers, or mage powers. They were never like that. Yeah. They were just supposed to give, like, a normal person a little bit more of an edge against real supernatural threats. And I don't mind that they're like, we can just use guns for it, and it's oops all guns, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not a bad story, but thematically, it feels boring to me to a degree.
That's why I still think Hunter the Vigil is interesting, because it's like, oh no, you work for a medical company which research supernatural creatures and can implant you with like a werewolf healing gland, you know?
Well, that's an interesting. I like that direction. Yeah, that's an interesting direction. But
that's one of the ways to get powers is the Sharon Medical Company.
I always thought about for the original is you have to become somewhat of a monster to fight the monsters. You know.
Yeah, and I still feel like that's in Vigil. It's just you have to they make it around these companies.
Yeah.
At least the original. At least the original one. I haven't actually played the Chronicles 2nd edition one.
Yeah. And with the 5e version of it, I think it is just more of like it's psychologically you become a monster rather than physically, like, you know, spiritually become a monster. You know, like you because you're the only one that knows they're real and have to fight against them, so you kind of like turn your back on everybody. No one believes you, and they're being corrupted by it, that kind of thing. You know, like the social, psychological corruption into a monster to fight them. Yeah. That guy you just killed, everybody thinks it's just a guy. No, it was a monster. No one believes you. Oh no. It's interesting, but it's not my favorite flavor. So, again, that's just me. But I can definitely see really good story opportunities for it. It turns out I like having options in these games. So we can do both stories. You know, the monster versus politics of Vampire, which is just the monster now, and the politics went out the window. Anyway, Werewolf's there too, and I'm interested in that one. Because I've heard very little about Werewolf 5. So I might spend the 18 and get the books here. Because I don't need the physical rivals stuff. But, it certainly has a little bit of interest to it. If you are interested in these, again, I'm not a big fan of Vampire 5e. Doesn't mean you might not like it. But, you know, maybe that's where you can go into get into the World of Darkness. I do like the World of Darkness a lot. And honestly speaking, you can use as much or little as you want in a lot of these things. So, of some of the meta-narrative. And maybe just don't use the Hunger Dice as much, because they suck. Don't take that from me. We've heard stories from, I think Momo was talking about doing it.
Yeah.
So, here's what I wanted to talk about, because it's a weird thing. But I don't know if I want to link their website. I'm going to link the article. Because I just don't like some of the stuff they do. They have a good goal, but they do it in a really terrible way. I'm talking about PETA. And they made some D&D stuff. PETA's very controversial in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's good to, like, you know, be good to animals, but they do a lot of stuff that's really controversial, and that's why I'm like, you can check it out on their website if you're interested. It's linked in this article. But yeah, they're doing 3 classes to basically be all like a paladin, druid, ranger that are all about, you know, like, I guess animals. Interesting.
What?
The ethical treatment of animals and the emphasis with other living beings. So I'm going to say, those concepts aren't anathemas to playing in D&D. If you want to check out these classes... Okay, I'm going to...
Your link didn't work, by the way.
That one didn't work? Why not? It didn't. That's weird. Page stuff. Why didn't it work? There's a 9 at the end. That's why. It was me. I was clicked into that when I hit a button.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you do that thing where you sometimes press 9.
I do it to switch our like images on the thing because I have 9 and I don't normally. But I keep forgetting that if I'm clicked into this and I had the link in there before I pressed enter, it did that. Anyway,
I'm surprised. Oath of Animal Murder, Warden of Killing Animals, and Ranger of Animal Murder is not the 3 classes.
Oh, PETA, you are...
I mean, it's just, there is a stance, and this is for people who don't know, PETA does have the stance of animals are better dead than in the hands of people. They do not like domestication, basically.
Yeah.
They actually prefer to, like, euthanize animals that they get a hold of.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, like, put them up for adoption. It's terrible.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting stance to have. I'm not gonna... I'm gonna say this. I would prefer the animals live. But, thematically, there are situations where that might be better, especially, again, think about shelters that you can't adopt out animals. There's a lot of suffering in those poor animals there. It's a very hard thing to do.
I mean,
it's very
here's
hard.
The thing. Most shelters do euthanize a lot of animals.
Yes.
But most of them don't have the attitude of, we'd rather euthanize them.
Yeah.
Most of them have the attitude of, we'd rather adopt them, but we can't just do it. Like,
I mean, you can take a look at these. They might be interesting. They might not be. They're a third party. I don't know how well they're in. I just took a brief look at them. They don't look terrible off the top of my head, but again, like, I don't have a comparison base. and they I didn't read deep into a lot of the abilities, so but it's an interesting idea that they did that. I mean, and it's free. They're offering it. You just have to deal with the thought of their existence. Bullshit.
I mean, yeah. And if you want to read something that will probably, I'm not even gonna read it, but they'll probably be very preachy in it.
Yeah, they'll probably be very preachy. I can't deny that one. Also, it's gonna be unfortunate that it's their way. I certainly can see it being very preachy.
Wow. Okay. So I just noticed that they locked it from being able to reply more, and I'm like looking, and I'm like, yeah, some people don't have a lot of nice things to say here.
Again, it's one of those things. It's a weird thing for them to do, to target D&D players. I feel like, do they see people mistreating animals? Most times, a D&D player would kill an animal is because they're getting into a fight to the death in the wilds with said animal. Or someone else has trained it to do horrible things, or mistreated it so that it would be a danger. Hey, they do a lot of that kind of euthanasia stuff. We just talked about that. Maybe that's what you're doing to the poor creature that those kobolds have tormented to be their minion. I don't know.
Oh gosh. Sorry, one of the comments I saw was, I'm curious what else the animal liberation does. I'm guessing they basically just get sneak attack bonuses against animals they've just liberated.
Yep. Sounds good. Final topic for today. Let's review that, and not add not an a 9 at the end. So Grim Hollow transformations. Momo brought this. Tis the spooky season, and the Grim Hollow people at Ghost Fire Gamings are bringing us something that I guess is bringing a lot more monster transformations. I'm assuming from the way they say it, for player characters. So I guess if you wanted to play a werewolf or some kind of changing kind of creature now, you could. But it's yeah.
I mean, you could also just play Pathfinder 2E, which has those rules for them.
I mean, they've been adding them. So. But I assume this is adding it to your basic 5 instead. Which they don't really have it in 5. So. Again, it's the eternal. Third party adds a lot of really neat stuff in. We'll just print this thing, which is maybe backwards compatible with stuff. Actually, wait, it's not. Sorry, too bad. You can enjoy it.
Okay, so here's the thing. No,
years at this point in time.
They are still backwards compatible as far as adventures go. Not as much subclasses, but adventures, yes.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. The adventures are pretty easy for stuff. Well. We haven't seen the bestiary to see how much the monsters have changed, or the monster manual, I should say. Mm-hmm. That might make a difference. For
maybe
now,
I'll back this.
They
seems fun.
Yeah, but this seems like a cool thing.
But also, my brain is just I don't know. I don't see myself playing 5e again anytime, ever again.
I can see myself using 2014 player D&D still.
Honestly, I do want to play more 5e, but I also am just I'm gonna go to Pathfinder for a bit. I'll let this whole thing blow over and see where it ends up.
Yeah, I think definitely, if I want to do, an easy, one-shot, I'll probably just pick up 5e 2014 and just do that. Maybe with a couple of the rules added in, you get a feat at first level or something. I don't know how much I would use, actually. That's actually a good question, that if I was going to do that, how much I would use, if anything. I haven't really asked myself that. I've thought about in the future picking up, because it is an easy pick up, make a simple character quickly and efficiently play kind of system. But yeah, I don't know how much of the new stuff I would have. It's not sure. Not sure it's going. Anyway, back to this thing. They do have, I guess, stuff compatible with VTTs, including Roll20, D&D Beyond, and some of the others. I don't recognize the symbols off the top of my head, but I'm sure someone who plays on those DTT platforms would recognize them.
Hold on, let me look at them. Oh, I already closed the page. Give me 1 second. Oh, no, I didn't. I put it over here.
It's like I can't remember any of the like after Roll20 and now like D&D Beyond. It's like I can't remember any of my Forge. That makes sense.
D&D Beyond, Roll20, and something Forge.
Yes.
It might just be called Forge, actually.
Might just be called Forge. I just so many times forget about the other things.
Forge. Or sorry, Foundry Virtual Tabletop.
Oh, Foundry! God, I should have really known that one. God damn it. My forgetfulness is...
The Forge is their like, shop for assets and stuff.
Yeah.
That's where my brain probably got Forge mixed in there.
Yep, that makes sense. Foundry and stuff like that. Lots of fun, lots of neat. If you want to check this out, I definitely recommend you take a look at it. The Grimhell stuff's been pretty neat. I know Momo's used it a bunch of times and recommends it. And I've played in a few games that Momo's used it, so it seems neat stuff. So. Alright! We have some deeper discussion topic today, and it was one that I thought about because we've had some times in certainly adventures and stuff like Crimson Queen and other adventures I've run where I've faced this problem as a DM/GM. My players have to make a plan. And they maybe don't have, like, all the information, and they're maybe suggesting plans where I'm like, that might not go well. So, sometimes you need to be able to basically get them to know some stuff or go in a direction without spelling it out in front of them because it's their plan. That's not easy.
Okay. So, here's something I want to say. Why not spell it out for them sometimes?
I mean, depending on the situation, I actually do. But I'm saying, like, if it's a point in time where you really are looking for that subtleness, because, you know, there isn't a good reason for you to spell it out, either in-game or out-of-game, I think... I'm trying to think of a good time recently, but again, this is my bad memory of trying to, like, put into my brain when have we recently had that kind of issue. I guess some of, like, the planning out for stuff related to... Was there any issues with planning on Scarwall? I don't think there really was.
Not really. It was very much just where are we going next, but in most cases we just Momo and Lightning left it up to us.
Yeah, you and Joe. I do think that was a lot. I don't think there was a lot of that.
The last time we really had to plan was the disease clinic.
Yes.
That's one. Be right back though. I need to go.
Okay. I think for that one I was pretty hands off, which is again not necessarily bad to be hands off for the disease clinic. It kind of let you do your own thing and just present the information. So again, let me kind of preface what I mean by this a lot of times, because again, Warren brought up a very good point. You can just tell your players stuff a lot of times, or push them certain directions, but especially when it comes to creative things. I think the point of this is I'm not coming up with a plan for my players. I'm letting them come up with a plan. And I want to, I have unfortunately had been times where I've had to lead players by the hand and basically taken them to a point and been like, well, this is where we go now. This is what you do now. Congratulations. I've needed to do that. And it's a situation where the players are either just don't have an idea or are like doing something incredibly stupid and you don't want them to get themselves killed. I think it's what I'm saying here. Oh, you're muted there.
You are correct. I want to go back to the thing though, because I remember the whole thing was like we were creating these very weird things and we got very close to the idea of like, oh, a hat of disguise. We could disguise ourselves with a hat of disguise. And then you said later that you're like, I kind of wish I just reminded you that they wore masks at that point.
Yeah. Again, that one I think wouldn't have been bad to say, like, well, you remember that you've seen them all, they wear masks. It's not very easy to, what would you disguise as, That's something that your characters probably would have remembered. I think that in that case, your characters might have remembered. Probably?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think we would have, yeah. It's just something they didn't cross our mind, because we were like,
Oh, yeah. Certainly stuff can just leave your mind. And I think it's that balance between knowing what players should know, what characters know, keeping them apprised of that kind of things. Like, you can give little reminders of, like, hey, your character would know this, and stuff like that. But, like, I think there has been a few times where the game becomes more railroady, and I've had to do that, because my players have no idea what the fuck to do, and I'm going to be like, here, hold my hand, we're going over here now. This is your plan, congratulations. Which, I don't think feels good for either side. I don't want to be doing that, players don't want to be doing that, but you run into that situation sometimes, and I've had to do that in games. Cough, cough, Children of Wrath, I think I had to do that constantly with, where I have to handhold them to go anywhere, but that's because the insanity of that game. That was a game where I had to handhold. I'd rather not handhold. I think that's what this is indeed. Like, you don't want to handhold your players. That's probably a better way of saying this. But you want your players to kind of go in a certain direction.
What? I find it funny because I have a hard time getting my players not to go in the not to go in the obvious direction. As weird as that sounds, it's like this thing where it's like with Bastion Frontier, I always think back to this. I had so many like little hidden things planned around if you guys just wanted to explore. But you guys always went for the plot point. You guys never went, let's go check out what this town is. There's a town on the map over here. Maybe we should go see this.
I think it was, my character was very straightforward, but would have listened if anybody suggested. So I said something. The other people that actually said stuff went along with that a lot of times, or were like, refined what I said to an actual idea. It's like, hey, we can just go over there. And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And this is what we'll do. And this is what we'll do. And I'm like, that sounds great. I agree with this because it's doing what I wanted to do originally and making it an actual idea.
Yeah, and that's, to be fair, like, I need to learn how to seed more than the main plot better.
Yes.
So that's definitely part of it. But, like, because my thought was that I will seed the main plot and then you guys can go off the rails as much as you want. But that didn't work out as well as I thought.
I think the thing is,
because I found because players often go like, "Oh no, I thought we were supposed to go this way." It's like, yes, but
it's the delicate balance between sticking with the overall story, but also having the option of doing other little things or side things that might add to that story. And seeding those things is part of it too, because then it affects your players' plans. But again, it is that difficult balance, like you're saying, that players can be very straightforward. Oh, you said this, let's do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also built off what they remember, so it's like if
oh god,
I'm at least good enough to beat them over the head with the information in a way that's not beating them over the head. And that's just something I can do. I don't know why I can do it. That's not something I can explain. It just seems that I'm very good at getting players to understand what's going on. Yeah. But planning is a completely different thing, though. Getting players to make good plans is a different problem.
Because again, I think action and plan are definitely two halves of the same thing. We can easily say that. Your actions will be reflected upon your plan, and the plan could be very simple. The plan could be as easy as, let's go over here. That's a very simple plan, very easy one. We just do that. But there oftentimes is a need for a complexity sometimes, and I'm going to say,
I would call that basically the distinction between a decision versus a plan. Getting players to decide can also be very difficult. That's true.
And getting a decision that is not also murderous of themselves sometimes.
Yeah, because sometimes players just want things that are just out out of the box. But then you've also got the idea of players who, but then there's also I would consider planning when you run into something and you need to figure out how to get around it. Whereas like a decision is like, I have two options, which are, they may have different good and bad parts, but we only have a few options.
Yeah.
Whereas like a plan is like, okay, we have a fortress, we need to figure out how to get the thing inside it. That's a plan. It's not two options. It's how do we do it?
And I think these are like two sides of the same coin kind of thing.
Oh,
like
100%.
Yeah. It harkens back to, I was just thinking about this as soon as we were kind of talking about this, is in Momo's Tuesday game. Now, a couple of sessions ago, I could tell you there was a lot of us, what the hell can we all do to do this? Like, I feel like we wandered into the solution to our problem by accident to a degree, or at least in my brain, that's what we did. You know, we're starting part 2, we'll talk about that in a minute, but in part 1, I've got to be honest, I am not quite sure how we got to the end of, this is where we go and do this thing to a degree. We somehow did, but my brain just didn't wrap around it very well for whatever reason. Like, I don't know if there was just something I missed in my notes, or the way that we were talking about things, or if there was just like a week I was kind of a little like, sick. Because there was a week I was sick kind of a little bit, that one week. And I know I was a little off for like a bunch of games and stuff. It could have been that week that like, something came up that like would have been a lot more brain working. Or maybe it was like a day I was a little like, I had to be a little late and I missed something. I don't know. Just something part of it. Me as a player was kind of a little lost on everything. And I don't think I had to basically rely on everybody else to make the decisions. Mm-hmm. Which, it was fine, but it doesn't necessarily feel great either to a degree. You want to be able to have like a little bit of cognizant, like, I can do this, I know what I'm doing kind of things. It's that juxtaposition between the two of them, which it can kind of be difficult. You want to have player choice there, but you want players to also stick with the story, I guess. And you don't want players to be confused by the story, or confused by too many choices, but you want them to be able to, like, make a couple of extra choices or free choices, So it's sort of like, I can present, going back to the, like, with the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
I can present a lot of situation, what's going on in the clinic, but the plan and then the decision you make related to that plan is entirely up to you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take away from you having that option and thoughts of that, certainly.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be the ones that are making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this time. There are times where, you basically give players one option, but you try to like maybe not do that because there can be creativity out of that.
Yeah.
Crazy plans players come up with, which are really fun. I enjoy those crazy plans, even though sometimes I'm like, this is not going to work at all. But it's fun.
I mean, I think the best thing is, as a GM, figuring out how to make your players' stupid plans work.
That's true. That is also a challenge that I don't mind trying to do sometimes. That was all of Children of Wrath. You've come up with yet another stupid plan. Great. How can I make this work? Good luck to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is like, the plans and decisions of your players are going to be a challenge no matter what, and you have to kind of like have good storytelling, have good fun, have all the good stuff. And,
I mean, ultimately, you should be flexible. The important thing, and here's where I like the whole storyteller mentality that I think there's a few things where it's like a lot of people have, a writer mentality, that you should have, and that is that your whole point is to give the players conflict. You don't want them to win super easily. You don't want them to fail spectacularly. You want them to succeed and then have a drawback, and then succeed and then have a drawback. And knowing that, you should, and in the end, they will succeed.
Well, they should succeed. I'm not gonna lie, things can happen and there can be failure. The TPK is a real thing.
It is, and that's also why I tend to dislike the whole writer mentality, is because some people have the idea that like you're supposed to be, this is your players' stories, they should always, where it's like, well, no, there are some definite differences in the way you handle things. In that, you know, also I dislike the what is it? I think we talked about this on a previous episode, the comedy mentality where it's like, oh, you have to always say yes, or always yes and the yes and mentality. I just like that one as well, for a similar reason. Where it's like sometimes you have to say no, sometimes things have to go wrong. But that's the thing that's different about like something like a RPG, is that your goal is to set players up to succeed. But if things go too wrong, there should be a point where they fail. In my opinion, though, it's better if that happens because of dice rather than direct player decision. Players can make a decision that then requires dice that causes them to fail. But I still think that failing, like people who go, this always reminds me of a thing about Gary Gygax, where it's like he basically always set up his portals in a certain way, where it's like there were always a black void that you walked into, and then one time he put a black void in front of them, and they were like, oh, it's a portal, and they walked into it, and he's like, nope, it was a sphere of annihilation, you're all dead. And I'm just like, that is you know, setting players up for failure, and that is an insta kill. There's no dice involved, there's no check. Gary Gygax was a very adversarial DM, from what I heard. From what I hear.
No, I've heard about that too. It's unfortunate that, like, you know, that's not really a great way, a very fun way to play. Being adversarial, you don't really want to. And well,
it depends on the game you play. As long as you're upfront with your players about it, like, this is a me versus you game. You have to outthink me. Like, some people like that. I know people who like that, but
that's true. There are games. I can't say that.
But I would argue that 99% of people do not like that. So it's just not.
Yeah, I think the thing that it harkens back in my mind to, with coming back to this original topic, is because all this is related to this entire idea. You don't want to be adversarial. You want to make sure your players kind of follow the story. You want to make sure your players are, generally speaking, safe, that their decisions aren't terrible. So that's why, like, most of the time, you are thinking about how can I make this work for my players, and you normally don't have to do a lot. There's plenty of times you take your hands off and let your players play. But there are those times you have to say something or do something, or like, you know, stuff like that. And honestly speaking...
I'll let you finish.
I was going to say, subtlety is better than being directive. Generally in this case, but you can be both as necessary, you know.
So I would say there are two ways to go about this. First is you make it clear the first is the hands-off approach, but you have to make it clear to your players it's up to them to take notes and to think critically, and you can go hands-off after that. But I would say if you do go hands-off, you have to encourage your players to take notes, saying, if you do not take notes, you will run into problems. The other option is to be the GM who understands that, like, well, for the people I play with, I tend to play with a lot of people who are, like, there for the day, you know, and then they forget about it after they leave. And for them, I will make sure to remind them of things they would know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for example, we can go back to the mask thing. If they're clearly forgetting the mask thing, to be fair, I've been taking pretty good notes for Crimson Queen. But yeah, but there's the idea of, and that's obviously a minor overlook. And things like that you can probably still do even as a GM, the first GM.
Yeah.
But there's also just the point of like, oh no, you guys keep forgetting that you guys keep planning to fight 20 guards, but remember there's a guard training hall, their guard training day that day, and there will be 50. You know, like you found that out already. Saying we can take them if things go wrong is not the problem. It's not an option. Yeah.
Again, I kind of think that there is a kind of balance between those two sides to it. It's like you're not one or the other. You're generally speaking, you as the person running the game want to be as hands-on as you need to be for the story. I think is what it is kind of like. I would prefer players take notes. Yeah. Am I going to have some notes? Certainly speaking, you know. I usually try to go for if players would know it, I'd let them know. If they don't know it, then I'm not really going to say anything about it. But I might be like, hey, you know, before you're making this decision, make some knowledge checks or something like that. Or, you know, maybe it's something that I can be like, this is some extra information you know because of your backstory or something like, or like maybe because of what's been going on, there's some extra information, you know. Like, I think establishing a situation where your players can make the most educated choice and plans, and then, so making the most educated plans and most educated choice. And yeah, certainly speaking, a little bit of craziness, a little bit of silliness, a little bit of outsideness there can be added into this with, I have this crazy plan, you know, but if your players or somebody has a crazy plan and they decide to follow it, they should understand it's a crazy plan sometimes. You know, it's like, hey, I have this plan. I know it's a long shot. Let's do it. That's a choice for, we're going on, you know, some luck and stuff like that. That's fine for players to do, you know.
I'm down with, I'll usually actually be completely fine with rule of cool ideas, which are basically just this idea is kind of stupid, but it'll be cool.
I like the rule cool, but I usually choose. I do. I usually like them there's a chance this will work. You will have to do something to make it work.
There's a reason I don't go rule of cool as often in your games, because you generally make me roll a few extra dice.
Well,
which I just view as potential for failure.
It is, but also I'm not gonna lie, it is one of those things that I am not as strict as a lot of folks seem to think when it comes to some of the dice rolls in Pathfinder. I will give you dice rolls, but I gotta be honest, it's probably the same. It's one of those problems with Pathfinder in comparison to something like 5e that has the advantage system. I think
to be
really
fair,
good for
I did not mind doing it. I did not mind doing it in the 5e game we were in, but in Pathfinder, I've felt more punished by it than rewarded.
Pathfinder, it's harder to do because you don't have advantage. I think those two things which, you know, are subtle differences in a lot of times with the dice roll and stuff like that, and do bring it down to luck a lot of times, make it a lot better luck, you know. And a lot of times I think it's the difference between 5e and something like Pathfinder is because the number differences are a lot more important. Like, you know, what I mean by that is that's a system where if I have a high DC, it's probably still feasible for my character that's not very skilled in 5e in comparison to Pathfinder, where it might not be feasible at all.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. Is I'm like, oh, I would like to do. This is kind of more early on where I'm like, oh, I'd like to try this, and you're like, okay, well, you have to make this kind of check, and I'm like, all right, this is Pathfinder, where it's like, and I have a +0 in that check, so...
I try not to make it impossible, but it is also, it sometimes is very hard to make it that it's easy. Again, it's the nature of the older system. The rule of cool doesn't not exist, but it's, a lot less cinematic, I think, in that way than 5e can be.
Yeah. I mean even 2e. I feel like 2e can be really cinematic.
2e, I think, it is a little better for it because you can still just goddamn add your level. So, if it was feasible for your character of your level, you have a chance to, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, even if your character's not trained in it, I would be like, yeah, you can make a roll and add your level, you know? Like, that actually is a neat way of doing it.
Yeah. So, again, like, I think this all harkens back to the same kind of thing, because you want that to be, like, you don't necessarily discourage your characters from doing things, too, when we're talking about this with planning and stuff like that. A really cool idea, a really silly idea, those kind of things that have possibility of working, you still want them to do it. But, again, also, you also want to balance that out with, it's like, well, failure might mean death. You don't really want to encourage that then, you know? It's sort of like if players are trying to, like, do this really cool thing over, like a 500-foot pit, you're like, this is displaying that you will die if you fall. I can't change that. I established the pit. You're coming up with a crazy idea for it. I really can't encourage this, you know? I think that you kind of have to, you kind of want to discourage it in a way, you know, but you want to be smart about it.
See, I as a GM would say that it's not an insta-kill, you'll fall. Like, okay, well, it really depends, because there are situations I could see as, no, you will die, and that is, I want to, like, you know, swing underneath this bridge to grab the key that is falling into the lava. It's like, if you critically fail, you might slip, you know? Like, that's the thing.
Well,
but,
you know, in Pathfinder,
like a pit to me is like, well, then a player can probably make another roll to jump off with a rope tied to their ankle, and, you know, I'd allow something like that, you know? So it's like, there are ways to save you.
Yeah, and, like, honestly speaking, if someone was going to fall from whatever crazy thing we planned, I'd probably set stuff up like, oh, hey, you know, there's you know, you have an extra chance because you're falling far enough to grab the side. Or, you know, maybe you're falling into water, which can help, you know, and you notice it as you got down there. You couldn't see it before, but you can tell now as you're plummeting, there's water down there, so you can quickly switch to, like, oh, I'm really good at swimming. Maybe I can, like, take a dive in there, you know, that kind of thing, you know?
Yep.
That you can give players options to survive along the way that make it better.
I do need to be, funny enough, I need to be better at killing players at a point. I tend to give them too many options. I let them make too many rolls. I've heard a good balance is 3. There's also the failing forward idea. Some people really hate that. I don't know. You know what failing forward is, right?
Yes, that you still make some progress after even if you fail.
Yeah. That's like the you miss the jump across the gap, and but you actually do make it. You just drop your gun. You know.
Yeah, that's a little too much for me. Like, I think mostly like.
Yeah, you are not. I know we've talked about this once before, and I remember you not liking failing forward.
I can say I think there are circumstances when it would work. I think there are circumstances where it would work. But I think it's very circumstantial that I would fall.
Yeah, and that's where it's like the thing that I mentioned, like swinging to grab a falling key just before it hits the lava. You could do a fail forward where you grab the key, but then you drop your legendary +5 weapon, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like there are, and that's kind of those things where it's like it depends on your GM style.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like you do like a game where you can die.
I think the threat of death is not a bad thing to keep, but I think it also definitely has to be used sparingly. Like,
yes.
I feel like not unfair death, you know, or something like that. I think that's one of the reasons why it's been very hard for First Edition Pathfinder, because there's a lot of just brutal, this will kill you kind of stuff, which I'm not as much
Scream.
Banshee Scream.
Your save, you die.
Well, it's not. it's just a billion goddamn damage, and it recharges like a breath weapon. And they fly, so they can just take a distance.
Yeah.
Whale the Banshee.
That was like a minute.
It might be a minute, but Banshee Pathfinder. I'll go over the stats here for why I was like, I just think let's fight this. So, their whale, full round action, DC 23 Fortitude save. If you're under a fear effect, you take a -4. Creatures that make their save are sickened for 1d6 rounds. Those that fail take 140 damage.
Yep, that's what it was. It is a death effect, and if you die, something happens. Or is it just that?
No. It's
no.
just a
Okay.
sonic
Yeah.
death effect. Because it's a full round action, you technically could do stuff that would.
Yeah, once per minute. So yeah, it takes a minute. So it's not as much of a breath weapon, but it is.
But they do also have a touch attack, which you have to make a will save or cower in fear for 1d3 rounds, and it does 14d6 negative energy.
Yeah, and it's a
and
touch,
the fact
which is terrible.
Yeah, and where you're going to be fighting them is really awful because either it would have been up in the air where you're flying around, where most of you can't really do very well and have to worry about attacks of opportunity, or in a tower where it can just use the fact it's incorporeal very easily.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, is like also at the time it was a if you die here you can't be resurrected because your soul gets trapped by the curse.
Yeah. So there was a lot of like bad things. It's like I don't think the Banshee would have been impossible to fight, but it could have gone badly very quickly.
It's just a chance to insta die basically. I mean, what's funny
140
is
damage is a lot.
Condis and I probably could have been okay, but the people who were going to die were, it's a fortitude save, so Ivona, and the people who have low fortitude saves tend to also have low health.
Yeah. So, yeah, 140 damage is a lot. Even, because you would have been even at 14th level when you might have been fighting.
I mean, so. I currently have at that level, I would have had, I think I had 119 health, so it would have been an insta down for me.
Yeah. The amount of damage it done was kind of sad. Well, it's sort of also I wasn't gonna have you fight too much. I'm sorry. That thing has trapped the soul.
Yeah.
And it can just keep doing it.
You can rescue the soul if you kill it, but it does mean that there's a good chance that one of us would die, basically.
Yeah.
And your body turns to dust, if I remember correctly.
So you need True Resurrection, which is very expensive. Yeah. And also, it has a spell-like ability of Bestow Greater Curse, where if you fail a DC 21 save, he can just give you -12 to one ability score, -6 to 2 ability score, -8 to attack rolls, saves, and checks, or 25% chance to act normal. At will. And then just being immune to magic, and, also the Telekinetic Storm. Gross, 12d6 damage that he can just do per round and things around him. And he has damage reduction 20 slash. Meaning, there was so little...
All.
Yeah. You would have done very little damage to him. Condis would have still done, only 10 damage around to him. Maybe, per hit. Thanks, motorcycle. He is just... They're just very often. Also, they have at will the spell, though, too. Forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. So they can cast it.
Yeah. As a spell. Which, again, is 20-foot radius only instead of the normal 40-foot radius. Oh, man. Still. Oh, wait, he's a 20th level caster. Meaning it would do 200 points of damage if you fail the fort save. Gross.
Also,
anyway.
Also immune to magic.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. There are just certain things that I'm like, why is the CR14?
Instantly, it instantly succeeds against effects that have spell resistance.
Why is the CR14? That's what's my brain sometimes. It's just sometimes I think the lower stuff, it's weirdly balanced.
That's because in some ways the original had a lot more of, as long as the numbers were right, that's how you determine the CR. But the abilities don't necessarily have to follow that in the same way. And that's why a Demi-Lich is problematic. Whereas like in Pathfinder 2e, it's like, if you add powerful abilities, consider dropping the CR. Or raising the CR.
Yeah. I do think it's like, these are the kind of things that, like, it didn't take me a lot to basically be like, hey, you've got some people with really good perceptions, you've got people with really good religion checks, this is what this is. And we recognize what this is. That's back. Oh, we can avoid fighting it. Great, you know? I'm like, that's a smart idea. But again, like, this is a situation where, like, I didn't have to do anything, I didn't have to say anything, like, part of me wanted just to yell to you guys, hey, there's going to be a Demi-Lich in there. I don't know what you're going to do about that, you know? Because I'm like, I don't want you to fight this thing. I looked at its stats, and I'm like, I don't want to fight that thing if I'm in any game. Ugh.
Yeah. You did kind of tell us that, like, this is a bad idea, almost outright. And I get that. I don't think we were going to. I mean, Momo knew enough to be like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
I recognize that Demi-Liches are also very powerful. I'm surprised that it's CR14. I'm gonna be honest. That's not even the lesser Demi-Lich. The Demi-Lich is CR14. The lesser Demi-Lich is just that plus spells, right?
It's higher CR. It's like CR 15 or 16. The Awakened one.
Okay, it is just that Demi-Lich and then an Awakened Demi-Lich.
Yes. Normal Demi-Lich, there is an advantage to it, that it's in torpor until you disturb its body or its treasure. It's like a corpse or its treasure. So, there is a possibility.
Oh, I see, yeah. So there's got it. So there's a Demi-Lich. So you called it a lesser Demi-Lich. That's actually a Demi-Lich. And then you have the Awakened Demi-Lich, which is the CR16.
Yeah. I think because I go by a little bit by D&D terms, because D&D terms...
Probably did that, yeah, where it's lesser and then the main, yeah.
The main one is just the Demi-Lich,
yeah.
Yeah.
So slight name change makes it kind of confusing. Jeez.
The normal one, it's gross because it just also has spells, you know. And it, like, yeah, okay, a little bit more difficult. But again, it's still a numbers game, as you said, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Demi-Lich, again, this comes down to the entire thing of trying to make sure your players are not doing anything to get themselves killed, are sticking with the story and stuff like that, and you still
I'd say
don't...
the biggest...
I did want to not... I was so tempted to throw it in your face, but I'm also like, you'll see it. Like, it was that type of thing, yeah, you will notice it very early on, I guess it's fine. We don't have to, like,
yeah, that's why I'm like, no, don't tell. Like, let's think you're like, you're gonna find out soon. I'm like, no, don't tell us. We'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what the issue is. And yeah, I mean, the big thing for me is just that I would say, keep it plausible. Sometimes players get weird ideas in their head that are just impossible. You know, like, oh, we could take a spoon and dig through the wall. I'm like, you have an hour, you know? And they're like, oh, right.
I'll dig through that wall.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah. So it's just like, yeah, sometimes players are weird and then they just completely miss obvious facts. Remind them of them. So remind them of consequences. Remind them of what they know. Especially
things that are very common things they would know.
Yeah. Especially if it's a common thing they would know that their characters would know, but their players wouldn't.
That's true, too.
That's another important thing, is that, like, you know, oh, yeah, no, like, no, that's a you know, gods or people who worship this god all have green eyes. You would know that, you know?
Yeah. It's a gift from their god. It gives them these green eyes that kind of glow.
Yeah.
How do I get that? Well, maybe we can use some kind of disguise match to give ourselves green eyes. Yeah, you know, something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it's like, remind them of things. So it's like, yeah, I would say it's really just, it's important to remind them of the simple things, and but ultimately let them make their own decisions. It's a tight line to walk sometimes, though.
Yeah. Especially because players very often do things that try to get themselves killed if you don't let... The players are like toddlers. I'm not gonna lie. They don't do that on purpose. But, like, the rule of cool in people's brains, combined with sometimes forgetting things, sometimes lack of knowledge, combined with the fact that they are basically oftentimes, in quotations, heroic characters that have a lot of abilities, means that they're going to do things that are, you know, the I can dive off this cliff and it's a great idea kind of, you know, like, stuff. So,
Yep.
I can jam a spoon in this socket, it's not going to hurt me. I mean, it's not quite literal, but, you know.
Players want to go skydiving, and you have to remind them that gravity exists and to take a parachute.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, gravity. Oh, yeah! I died. Anyway. Alright, should finish up today talking about our week in gaming. That was like a good place there, you know, sort of like, keep in mind characters.
Yep.
We had Joseph's game this week.
Yes, we did.
We did. It was...
We wrapped up the big fight of Knowles.
Yep, even Knowles.
I was happy with that.
I think it was fine. It was a good battle there. I think it went well.
Yeah, we did the whole description thing.
I'm not gonna lie, okay. The entire Time Dragon storyline is weird, and unless it goes somewhere, I feel like it wasn't
Joe is not good at... Speaking of reminding people of things they know, Joe is not good about doing that subtly.
Yes, in the case of this is what, you know, but I think this entire, like, I think it is he's like using those kind of like random weird things that happen in the Outlands. He likes it thematically, but I'm like, they just don't feel like they fit with the entire story a little bit. I feel like they detract from it. Like the baseball team, it was kind of like, you know.
That was fine. That was just a funny little thing. I actually didn't mind that much, just because it was so clearly isolated that it didn't bother. The whole Time Dragon thing, where it's like we met the dragon in the future and he gave us the option he gave us something to save him in the past, and I'm just like, okay.
Which is our future, but his past, and I'm like, God. And we have the Time Dragon with us. Like, I would hope we get something out of the Time Dragon storyline. If we do, that might be interesting.
Yeah,
but like, it's sort of like
Joe is bad about weaving things together.
Yeah, it is just like an extra side stop at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how it goes.
I'm happy for Joe for running games. I enjoy playing in them. They're fun. But he's also not good at it.
I think, again, I can see where he wants to go with a lot of stuff, and I don't think he's particularly terrible at it. I think he's okay at it all, but I think it is, again, like, we have stuff stacked against us. We're working out of the Planeship book, and we're not running the Planeship book perfectly. We're doing it every other week. And unfortunately, it's sort of like, Joe also doesn't have a particular lot of extra time to work on anything more exact and stuff like that. You know, these are details that make it lore-like.
I honestly think he could. I don't know how much free time he actually has, but I know that he does this every other week, meaning he at least has an off week where he could look into some things.
I think he...
But I also understand it not being a priority for him wanting to do this, but it not being... And that's a big part. Like, for me, I make RPGs a priority for me. I love running them. I love playing them. I love learning about them. I love discovering them. I love running them and playing them and whatever. I think I repeated some stuff there. But the point is that I'm willing to put in effort because I enjoy not just the game, but the process of creating it. Joe, I don't think really likes creating the game. Like, he's just... It doesn't interest him, but he does enjoy running. And that's the point, too.
I think the thing is, he does enjoy creating some of the stuff, but he's been burned in the past by some of his games. Because I'm going to say he had learned some lessons, and there were certain things that he did in some of his games which were pretty, like, big offenses. Not on purpose, though. Like, the first game he ran, which was fine, it was fun to game, but some of the things he wanted to do burned him a little bit. Because the entire thing was, he established this NPC who was supposed to be, like, helpful and part of our group's, like, thing that we're going to do. Like, we had this entire process to do, and he was going to help us out with this. But, when he first met him, he was an asshole. Like, he was a holier-than-thou paladin, but he was also, like, kind of because the thing is, even being lawful good doesn't make you not be kind of a jerk in certain ways. Because he was, like, you know, when I say racist and sexist, he kind of was both of those things. Yeah. So, he was very, like, you know, chauvinistic, I guess, is probably the best way to say it, you know. Which, he may have thought of those as being funny, you know. Like, the characters.
Well, yes, so, I mean, Joe probably thought of, I'm going to give this character some flaws.
Yes.
And
but those flaws were really bad to us when he established it with us. And then, yes, the character got humbled later on in the story when very horrible things happened to his homeland, and we were kind of, like, looking after him. We were like, look, we're sorry about this. We still hate you.
Got it.
We'll help you out.
That makes sense. Joe had a character arc for this character planned, but he basically made it too extreme at the beginning, which caused you to hate him no matter what moving forward.
Yes,
that sounds about right.
So, yeah.
That happens.
Yep. That's what happened. You know, and that kind of, like, put that game in kind of, like, a weird position then, too, because he was important to the storyline, and he was supposed to be important to the storyline, and has no storyline. But it was sort of like, it was too extreme at the beginning. And I think that's a kind of, like, learning the subtlety of it. And I think there's some other games that have had some things like that, but I think Joe's fine with playing stuff. It's just, there can be kind of weird extremes.
Yes. In fact, I would probably say that honestly makes sense, because the thing I've noticed about the most is that he's very unsubtle when it comes to this. He needs to learn, but that's honestly, that is a very hard skill to learn as a GM. I will admit, it's a very hard skill to learn. Just how to be subtle in general when it comes to, like, characters and writing and stuff.
When you need to be subtle and when you need to not be subtle too, because there's that balance. It comes back to what our topic was earlier. That's a little bit about subtlety sometimes when you know when you need to use it or not. Anyway. So I enjoyed it. I think the time dragon stuff kind of weird. I hope it goes somewhere. We're getting back to this big part of the storyline. I'm happy about that. This has been interesting, but again, it feels very, like, weird side questy outside of what we were doing originally. So this has been like this long story to go retrieve one guy for a lady that runs a casino back in Sigil.
And he actually made it clear to us that part of this was just to get us to a certain level. He said that during this game. I don't know if you caught that.
I missed that. I missed the exact line of that.
Yeah, he basically said that, like, oh yeah, you guys will be the right level soon to do the thing I want. It's basically what he said.
I'm guessing there's big parts of the real story, like, he wants to go, but he wants to have some adventures that he wants to have. So it is, like, this big thing that leads us there. He has a point A and a point D, but he's got to use what's in this book, which doesn't necessarily, with his story, work as well to get us to point D, unfortunately.
Yeah,
which also requires levels.
I would say he decided to use the book. He could have done something else, but yeah. Which isn't bad. There are ways to make that work, but...
Yeah. I think it's fine. It's just been a little crazy. In Monday's game, I had that one. Monday and Tuesday. Monday was basically we are participating in some kind of event or something where it's this, like... It's like the final thing we're doing for the game, which I think we're... I don't know what's going to happen next, but this is like we're ending the game. We're getting to the end of this one at least. It's like a competition or something that involves like physical challenges and stuff like that. And There's probably a lot more subtle detail to it, but, it's storyline that, I've been a little separated from because my character is as involved, I feel like. But, I'm helping out my friends. That's where I'm at. And then Tuesday, Momo had their game, which we killed a bunch of cultists on a train. Because we're very Eberron coded, where it's kind of got like magic tech a little bit of steampunk. That's the kind of world we're in. So there's like a magic train that we in. It's its own world, but I do feel it has like some similarities to Eberron that way because they got magical trains and stuff too. But apparently some cultists took it over. We killed them. We ran into someone that was the infiltrator in the cockpit, who then turned out to have a bomb. So we stopped that. The train, we managed to prevent it from crashing, but it was basically kind of like derailed. It managed to slip off the tracks at the end of it there too, so it wasn't going to block anybody. And then so we had to wander. We kind of had to camp out and wander the next town. And we're got where we need to for the next part of our adventure. We're starting adventure 2 with some excitement along the way. Woo! Then Wednesday we had my game where you didn't fight a Demi-Lich.
Yep. I avoided it like the plague it was.
Yeah, it's there. It's not going anywhere until someone wanders in and accidentally disturbs it and gets their soul devoured. Some orc somewhere.
I mean, we'll come back and cleanse it, probably before too many die.
Just a big pile of, dead orcs in front of it. And then, you basically finished up the area. You could have fought the Nightshade, technically, but you could have also just given him one of your Song-to-Thon people, where Larry did not want to go with him at all.
Yep.
But Seal was kind of neutral about it, but you made enough of a diplomacy check with him to be like, I guess I'll do it. For the glory of my god, which is, I'm gonna be honest, Song-to-Thon sucks. I did a video about Niddle. I read up on Niddle today, which is their Song-to-Thon country. It's very awful. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So, there'll be a lot of character development things next time. Leading into an eventual rebellion and then an attack on a castle. Which, I don't know how long it's going to take, because again, it depends on what everybody plans for the rebellion, which I had a list of some things, but I did forget the one that I was actually going to put on the rebellion list, which involved Vona's father showing up. He's headed for Corvosa.
Okay. I mean, we also had, and then my brother. We need to figure out.
That's personal stuff. There's your brother. Zardus has some Celestial stuff. Avona has some Pharasma stuff. And Condis has some other stuff too. So all of you have some personal related stuff that's going to be involved in this. Yours is the most involved, I'm going to say.
Cool.
So I don't know if they want to do that first or not. Because yours involves... You've already established kind of what it involves a little bit, but it is the most involved out of all of them. Because most of them are meetings and role-playing. Yours involves rescue.
Oh, fun. We actually get to do it.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, it'll be fun. I think we're... it's been... I have enjoyed Crimson Queen, but certainly speaking, it continues to teach me lessons on stuff and what I have to do, especially when adapting some of these. I played it very loosey-goosey with Buccaneers a lot of times, and we had a lot of issues. But I feel like there were some issues that the nature of Buccaneers avoided, because it just allowed a lot more sandboxy in certain things anyway, naturally. And without that sandboxy element, some of the worst elements of the adventure pass as they're written, at least the older ones, show up a lot more. So, I don't know. Makes sense. Yeah. We'll see. I haven't decided what I want to do next anyway, but they're getting close to. I kind of have to know what you're doing for the Rebellion anyway, because sort of that will also determine how many tokens and monsters I'm setting up for a palace. Because it is a gigantic palace with lots and lots of rooms, where most of them don't have things you're going to deal with. It's in a way, it's big like Scarwall. In a way, it's not, because there's not, like, ghosts and stuff haunting it. There might just be some random servants in a room. You're not murdering everybody. They just work there. Sometimes. And also, you might not go everywhere.
I don't know. We'll see what Lightning's character does when he decides to fireball a room after opening it.
It's less cursed than other places, so you're less likely to just try to murder everybody.
I just feel, I'm gonna be honest, I've just kind of felt like the Redemption Cleric has been very vindictive.
Yeah, I understand why, though, too, is the entire thing, so that's why I haven't said a lot about it. You know, it really has been, like, the situation you were in was quite overwhelming. And just, oops, all of it.
Yeah.
Also, I think, like, the redemption that, Zardus thinks of for undead is just to murder them again. That's the philosophy of that religion.
No, anyway, there have been some other things which have made me... Anyway.
Alright, okay. We'll leave it here, though.
Yep.
That's a good spot.
And if you want to... Yeah.
Alright, so, hey everybody! Thank you for joining us today. It was a kind of a long one, but we were having a lot of good conversations about things. And, we wanted to, go over all the interesting things and stuff. Where can people find you? Shout you out stuff out.
I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter, DiamondWyrm on Blue Sky, and DiamondWyrm on YouTube. I just today did an episode where I basically just tested out some Pathfinder combat, just trying to learn the ropes for that, so I can learn it better and have a handle on it when I eventually run it. Run Pathfinder 2e. 2e. Did I say 2e? Anyway, Pathfinder 2e.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. Just kind of figuring some stuff out. We'll see what I do from there, but...
Myself, hey, Tenth Avenue to cover. Make sure to check out my schedule. I've been trying to put it up on Discord, Twitter, on my YouTube channel, in the discussion section, just to keep people abreast of it. That gives all the times that I stream, gives all the times a pretty good schedule for uploads to YouTube if you want to go catch me out there. Remember to check out my social media. Remember, wherever you're watching this, give the right support, that kind of thing, follow, like, etc. It does help, we continue this entire thing and do this stuff to check us out and join us for these things. So, give some support now. Anyway, I'll be back Tuesday for some gaming, and then, do all my tabletop stuff in the week. Schedule will be up. I hope everybody enjoyed today. I hope you had a great time. Thank you again, Worm, for joining me. And you know what? Until the next time we hang out, talk, do some discussing tabletop, anything else. Anyway, bye everybody for